Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome back to the Global Community Builders Summit 2020 Globes.
Yes.
We had a very inspiring plenary opening session this morning with
Yes.
three prominent speakers.
The first one.
Dr. Muhammad Daud Bakar, the president of IIUM.
And we got the officiating speech from Mr. Stephen Presner, the
Correct.
UN resident coordinator for Malaysia, Brunei and Singapore.
And we had listened to the keynote address by Mr. Muhammad Abida, the head of Center of Excellence ISDB, Islamic Development Bank,
Yep.
based in Kuala Lumpur, but currently he had delivered his speech from Dubai.
Okay, for those who just joined us, welcome. Now we are starting for day one agenda of the Community Builders Conference 2020. So
Remember the theme, Nurul?
yes, the theme.
Unlocking the souls of
Community Builders Achieving Sustainable Development Goal. GLOBS 2020 is brought to you by International Islamic University Malaysia and Philandure, supported by CSO-SDG Alliance and also APPGM All Party Parliamentary Groups Malaysia.
It is a 7 days event with 2 satellite programs. We have the Community Builders Conference and also the My CSO training programs.
Yes, that will be at the later days. That will be on 15, 16 and 17 November. So
don't forget to like and share.
Get yourself registered at our official Facebook page.
And don't forget to register. Remember the Facebook page. GLOBS 2020. GLOBS 2020. Like and share to all around your community.
All right.
So Nurul, what do we have this morning in our first session?
Okay, this morning we will have a session with the Managing Director of Yayasan Hasanah.
All right, that's nice.
And yeah, we did a bit of intro just now.
Exactly.
I think let the moderator do it. So we will have Ms. Mizan Muhammad, the Director of IIUM World Debate and Oratory Center, IIUM.
That's good.
So I heard that you know her quite well.
Exactly. Coincidentally, it happened to be that Ms. Mizan was my lecturer during my matriculation days in IIUM. So it's much obliged for me to be in her presence here this morning.
Yes.
And for you out there to listen directly from the Managing Director of Yayasan Hasanah or Hasanah Foundation, which is the key foundation under Khazanah Nasional Berhad, one of the main GLICs of Malaysia, government-linked investment company.
So they will be talking about on the topic Vision of a Greater Malaysia Beyond SDG.
Without further ado, let us pass the floor over to Madam Mizan. Over to you, Madam Mizan.
It is indeed my pleasure to be your moderator for this session. Before we proceed with the session with our distinguished speaker from Yayasan Hasanah, Puan Shahira, Ahmed Bazari, let me introduce to you the topic for our discussion today. With the topic Vision of a Greater Malaysia Beyond SDG will probably be taken by Puan Shahira to travel through time, inshallah, and to see the future of Malaysia beyond SDG. And I think SDG is not a new topic in our country. It has been discussed for so many years, and I think we have put so much efforts in in a lot of our initiatives, our even policies of the governments are centered around the theme of Sustainable Development Goal. And I think today we are very fortunate to have Puan Shahira Ahmed Bazari, the Managing Director of Yayasan Hasanah, with us to discuss this particular topic. So before that, let me just give a little bit of a brief introduction about our speaker. Thank you so much, Puan Shahira, for being with us today. How are you?
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh, and a very good morning. Distinguished guests, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Puan Mizan, thank you for that very kind introduction. Alhamdulillah, I'm happy to be here also as a proud alumni of IIUM at this Global Community Builders Summit 2020, themed Unlocking the Soul of Community Builders, Achieving Sustainable Development Goals. I would like to also thank the organizers, IIUM and Philandure, for inviting me to present the topic of Vision of a Greater Malaysia Beyond SDG. Can you all see my slide?
Yes, we do.
Yes. Okay. Because I can't see my slide, so you need to follow the presentation. Okay, so Vision of a Greater Malaysia Beyond SDG. Ladies and gentlemen, sustainable development has been at the heart of Malaysia's development approach since the 1970s, with an emphasis on eradicating poverty, improving the well-being of the people, providing universal access to education, and caring for the environment. New 21st century challenges will keep arising as we are a fast developing country. However, I believe that our nation has stood solid and united, which has made us to be stronger and responsive citizens in conquering any difficulty. Coronavirus has undoubtedly tested us further and rendered us a wake-up call. COVID-19 has brought us much difficulties and suffering, and it has simultaneously united us all to think on what's best for the individuals and society, be it health, income, and also social and economic protection and well-being. Next slide, please. Starting off today's presentation with sustainable development frameworks. Ladies and gentlemen, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals was launched in 2015 and sits alongside other global frameworks, and it provides a shared blueprint for peace and prosperity for people and the planet now and into the future. The SDGs recognize that ending poverty and other deprivations must go hand in hand with strategies that improve health and education, reduce inequality, and spur economic growth, all while tackling climate change and working to preserve our planetary boundaries. While the Agenda for Humanity is a 5-point plan that outlines the changes that are needed to elevate suffering, reduce risk, and lessen vulnerability on a global scale. In the Agenda, humanity, people's safety, dignity, and the right to thrive is placed at the heart of global decision-making. And then we have the Paris Agreement, a long-term temperature goal to keep the increase in global average temperatures to well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, and to pursue efforts to limit the increase to 1.5 degrees, recognizing that this would substantially reduce the risks and impact climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, next slide, please. I can't see my slide, so I hope the slide and what I'm speaking is aligned. If it's not, please apologies on behalf of the organizers. I would like to highlight several other angles of sustainable development beyond those in SDGs that some practitioners refer to for a more in-depth and holistic matrix of development, for example, like the Ikigai in Japan. Many of you would have heard of the concept of Sejahtera, IIUM being the key proponent of this ideology. Sejahtera is an indigenous concept in the Malay archipelago. Today, it is more often associated with the idea of a balanced well-being, even coexisting with common shared values and prosperity, but its essential meaning is beyond well-being of individuals, institutions, organizations, and society. I congratulate this university and the Honorable Rector for being a strong proponent of this Sejahtera concept. We've heard of Ubuntu, an African concept of people, planet, and prosperity, where cognizance should be taken of the indigenous culture of Ubuntu, both in theory and when determining sustainable development strategies in the country. Many of us are aware of the famous gross national happiness of Bhutan, where indexes explores each person's life in 9 domains, which includes psychological well-being, health, education, time use, cultural diversity, good governance, community vitality, ecological diversity and resilience, and lastly, living standards. Sustainable development within individuals and societies can be viewed from various angles, but only when these are fully immersed and understood and become a way of life can we see sustained success of coexistence with everything around us. So how are we doing against the SDGs? Ladies and gentlemen, Malaysia ranks at number 60 out of 166 globally in SDG achievement with an index score of 71.8. As you can see, while we have made good progress in SDG 1, all other indicators remain a work in progress. But 2020 presented an unprecedented event to the world. According to the Lancet Public Health, will the COVID-19 pandemic threaten the SDGs? I quote the following. Even before COVID-19, the world was off track to end poverty by 2020 under SDG 1, with projections suggesting that 6% of the global population would still be living in extreme poverty in 2030. Now, an estimated 71 million additional people could be living in extreme poverty due to COVID-19. Although income inequality has been falling in some countries, a global economic recession in the wake of the pandemic could push millions back into poverty and exacerbate inequalities. The most susceptible groups are being hit hardest by the pandemic, threatening SDG 10. Similarly, the ambition under SDG 2 to end hunger was faltering before COVID-19, but the COVID-19 crisis has added to pressure on production, supply chains, household incomes, with the poorest being most affected. Access to water and sanitation, SDG 6, remains a major health issue. 2.2 billion people remain without safe drinking water, and COVID crisis has highlighted lack of access to sanitation for billions. The aim of SDG 4 to achieve inclusive and equitable access to education also looks likely to be missed, with a projection that more than 200 million children will still be out of education by 2020. Most of the world's children have been deprived of formal education during the COVID-19 outbreak, a legacy that could threaten the SDG's underlying ambition to leave no one behind. The world has made progress on SDG 5, which is gender equality goals, with fewer girls being forced into early marriage and more women entering leadership roles. However, women's well-being has suffered during the COVID-19 outbreak, with incidences of domestic violence increasing by 30% in some countries, including ours, and a greater demand on women for unpaid care work, unquote. Ladies and gentlemen, the following slide summarizes Malaysia's progress with the SDGs, notwithstanding many of these will be adjusted for 2020. Malaysia has achieved one of the 17 SDGs and is on track to achieve further 3. However, challenges of varying degrees are present in all remaining goals. There is stagnation across 4 of the goals: quality education, climate action, life below water, and life on land. And partnership is the only goal that has seen a decreasing trend. Sustainable development means including the process of maintaining human needs while preserving the environment for future generations. It also means we must use the available resources efficiently so they will be available for many years to come. We've made notable strides across all SDGs. For example, absolute poverty reduced from 49.3% in 1970 to 0.6% in 2014, with a 90% reduction in undernutrition between 1990 and 2014. Child and maternal mortality rates are almost at the level of developed countries, where 95% of public health services subsidized. And on SDG 4 and 5, 97 enrollment rates for primary and 97 of secondary school for boys and girls in 2016, and 48% enrollment for higher education in 2012, which is 70% higher than in 2002. Well, we also have many strides to make. Specifically for SDG 1 on income inequality and social protection in the current pandemic, I submit we need to consider increasing income and economic potential, addressing higher cost of living and income vulnerability, enhancing delivery systems, and addressing multidimensional needs of the B40. On SDG 2, for example, on food security and nutrition, there are opportunities in tackling new dimensions of nutrition and enhancing food security by improving productivity, R&D, strengthening the food supply chain, amongst others. On my next few slides, I'm going to talk about the role of government, businesses, and CSOs in sustainable development, having heard where we are with social progress globally. Government, businesses, civil society need to do more as individuals and collectives to achieve sustainable development. Governments can influence change through appropriate target setting, incentive alignment, and social innovation. Some actions could be taken. Number one, measuring the right things, setting bold targets for social and environmental progress, and adopting new measures to track how well the economy is delivering them. Number two, aligning incentives to support better outcomes by using regulation and fiscal policy to pursue environmental and social goals and support sustainable business models. And number three, opportunity to create drivers and incentives for innovation aligned with core sustainability goals and should exemplify and enable sustainable business. Next slide, please. Businesses too need to set the right targets and ensure that incentives are aligned through finance and business models. Business could consider the following actions. First, ensure capital acts for the long term versus short-termism. Investors of capital can demand more from their money, using their influence to drive long-term, socially useful value creation in the economy. Price capital according to the true cost of business by reflecting social and environmental risk factors in the cost of capital. Apply their influence to innovate financial structures to better serve sustainable business that serves society's interests. Set evidence-based targets, measure and be transparent by contributing to a sustainable future by setting bold evidence-based targets, measuring the right things and reporting progress. Embed sustainability practices and decisions, including new ways of thinking in operational practices and decision-making. And finally, align organizational purpose, strategy, and business models that explicitly set out to improve people's lives while operating within the natural boundaries set by the planet. And finally, civil society play a key role in implementing innovative localized solutions and acts as the conduit across all parties. Some key actions to be taken include CSOs can complement government poverty alleviation programs with community-based, tailored assistance using evidence-based, innovative, and sustained solutions to lift people out of poverty. Data is key to measuring progress, but collection and reporting systems are lacking. In view of its extensive presence on the ground, NGOs and civil society can contribute to localizing SDGs and monitoring progress. In promoting citizen-centric collaborative governance, most civil society and NGOs in developing countries in Asia operate at grassroots levels and thus in general have active engagement with local actors and citizens. They can capitalize on their social mobilization competencies and strong presence in the local social network to draw feedback from citizens on the delivery of public services. And finally, for cross-sectoral coordination and collaboration, public, private, civil society collaboration can help to achieve a holistic view of supply and demand of aid and support across the system. It is also able to leverage on the strengths of each organizations for capacity building. In my next few slides, I'll be talking about what can organizations like Yayasan Hasanah do? What is Yayasan Hasanah's role in nation building and social progress? Ladies and gentlemen, SDGs and other models of sustainable development apply to multiple facets of our country. Now that we've visited the SDGs and other frameworks of sustainable development, let us think how they may apply to Malaysia. I framed it based on the core impact areas of Yayasan Hasanah, as also seen as key levers to social justice and social progress. These are investing in talent development and education. Number 2, building community leadership and empowerment. Number 3, celebrating arts and cultural heritage as the soul of the nation. Number 4, respecting planetary boundaries and taking climate action more seriously and urgently. And finally, all of this will not be possible without a transformative and courageous leadership. When we think about education, there is a tendency to only limit ourselves to preschool, primary, secondary, and tertiary, whilst in reality, learning is a lifelong journey. Malaysia has made inroads in lifelong learning through its blueprint of enculturation of lifelong learning for Malaysia 2011-2020. The essence of the blueprint is broadly represented by its use of the term enculturation, which attempts to reinforce even Islamic teachings to seek knowledge as part of one's life. Education is thus considered not just as a vocation or an obligatory phase in one's life, but a culture and a lifestyle. In addition to the approximately 5 million students in primary and secondary education, it is estimated by the University of Malaya Center for Continuing Education that more than 20 million adults could participate in lifelong learning programs in the future. To support efforts in education, Yayasan Hasanah and Yayasan Khazanah have awarded more than 1,000 scholarships, including over 400 of these students receiving a place in top 10 universities and institutions globally. We've also pioneered system interventions in our public schools through the Trust School programs that look at improving student outcomes through 4 key intervention areas, which are school leadership, pedagogical intervention, maximizing student potential, and parents and community involvement. Second, on the community empowerment. Community empowerment and leadership is key to ensuring participation from all segments of society in the journey of our country. However, those from marginalized communities are less likely to be active, which in return can further reduce their representation in political or economic decisions. A survey by UPM in 2017 of over 5,000 youth found that those from marginalized communities were less likely to participate in civic and political actions. Barriers to community empowerment are complex and often multifaceted. At YH, we tackle such issues through a community-based approach where multiple interventions across economic, social, and/or environmental areas are used to drive leadership at grassroots level. An example of such a support is where we work with a public housing project, PPR Lembah Subang, with 3 organizations, Women of Will, Mereka, and Smart Parents Network. In this program, B40 women were given microloans and were placed on an entrepreneurial development program and also given parenting skills session and youth digital training. Collectively, this resulted in an income of over 50% of our beneficiaries. The arts. The arts contribute meaningfully to our GDP. In 2016, according to the Cendana report, Kuala Lumpur cultural and creative industry alone contributed RM 11.2 billion to the country. However, the arts and our cultural heritage goes beyond being an engine of economic growth. Arts are central to the national conservation of identity and social cohesion because of their ability to inform our sense of who we are, how we work, and why we value what we do. Local art is not based on how others see us, but how we see ourselves. Our differences are pivotal to our identity. Identifying them requires confidence and intelligent self-reflection. At Yayasan Hasanah, we want to make arts accessible to all. To date, our efforts have allowed over 60,000 Malaysians to partake in various shows, screenings, and exhibitions. Fourth, protecting the environment and improving climate resilience. This is a global effort, but in Malaysia, we have a special role to play, as among others, we are also custodians of the world's oldest and biodiverse rainforests. There are about 15,000 species of flowering plants with 3,000 species of trees, 221 species of terrestrial mammals, and 420 species of resident birds in the forests of Sabah and Sarawak. Unfortunately, a study by the University of Maryland found that some 2.3 million square kilometers forest was lost between 2000 and 2012 in Malaysia. This makes Malaysia one of the countries with the highest deforestation rates in the world. Environmental protection and livelihoods are not incompatible. We have run successful programs with our partners that marries the two aspects. For example, we have trained Orang Aslis to be forest rangers in Pahang. This has helped provide jobs and at the same time protected tigers from poachers. Other examples include the Beyond Bins, plastic to profit project that strives for a sustainable and circular economy by giving waste a newfound value while promoting alternative sources of income to underprivileged communities. A key to a cohesive Malaysia in achieving greater social justice and progress is moral, courageous, and transformative leaders and leadership required to tackle 21st century challenges of climate crisis, food security, scarcity, displacements, wars, and others. We need transformative leaders who are willing to challenge the status quo and who are willing to adopt a new way of working to solve challenges of the future. My final slide, ladies and gentlemen, corporate foundations such as Yayasan Hasanah straddle across business and civil society and have unique levers to accelerate social progress towards building a better Malaysia and a step forward to building a better world. We are delighted to influence businesses on holistic sustainable management as corporate foundations can act as trailblazers by ensuring that their portfolio adheres to sustainability standards. We also believe in investing in research and evidence-based policymaking by combining the capabilities and insights of both sectors to develop proposals that drive social progress without compromising on economic outcomes. Governance and accountability are the core of the institution. A robust governance structure will help build social capital, trust, and investor stakeholder confidence. And finally, there's a great opportunity for us to set the standards for the third sector as partners of growth and inclusive development for the country. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, let me sum up my presentation in three key takeaways. The SDGs, firstly, the SDGs as a guiding sustainable framework is facing risk. Second, government, businesses, and finance and civil society have a key role to play to drive the sustainability agenda across their networks. And Yayasan Hasanah is a national philanthropic institution and other such peer foundations will continue and should continue to invest in key levers of social progress and justice, education, community empowerment and leadership, managing planetary boundaries and environmental protection, preserving and conserving to action our arts and cultural heritage, as well as remain a strong proponent of transformative and courageous leadership. I would like to once again thank the organizers for inviting me to share our thoughts on building a greater Malaysia beyond the SDG. As you can see, with much progress, there remain a lot more to be done. Malaysia will rely on its pragmatic citizens to demand for inclusive, sustainable, multidimensional, and participative approaches to development, social justice, and progress. And I'm very confident together we can ensure we leave no one behind. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Puan Shahira. That was a very insightful sharing coming from you, especially from the Yayasan Hasanah. Question, this is more of a personal observation, from your personal observation. To what extent do you think the Malaysians, particularly people at the grassroots level, has actually involved in achieving the goals that we have set? Has everybody been involved, or only certain sets of the society that are actually involved? Without doubt, I think agencies or institutions like Yayasan Hasanah has been doing such a great job in trying to achieve the SDG. But what about the people at the grassroots? Do you think that we are all on the same page, or is there still something missing or lacking, and how do we go from there?
Thank you, Mizan, for that question. I did touch a little bit about community empowerment and community leadership in my presentation. And I think that we have a huge opportunity in that area in enabling and empowering our society from a community leadership perspective to drive the kind of change that they want to see within their communities. And I think there's obviously a huge opportunity there. And with a lot of these things, and that is why at Yayasan Hasanah, education remains a core pillar for us, and we spend more than 50% of our funding in enabling talent development and education, because that really is the crux or the basic foundation and the greatest equalizer for anything around social progress and justice. So I think we need to do more. Obviously, SDG, for example, is one framework, but it's not a framework that is fully understood by all segments of society, obviously. But, you know, we see thematic sense of responsibility at the community level, you know, and I think if you think about it, it is really from a foundation of doing the right thing. And there is that sense among our society and communities where they are a lot more sensitive to environmental protection, where they are a lot more sensitive about the concept of respect and coexistence with, you know, others, humans or nature. There are those things, and these are the communities, and these are the support that we need to continue to enhance. So I wouldn't say that, I wouldn't say that at the grassroots level there is understanding of the SDG, but certainly the moral values of it and the principles of doing the right thing do exist at grassroots. So there's still a lot to be done. And I think our citizens need to understand that they do have the capabilities and they can increase their capabilities and capacities to demand for a more equitable progress within their societies and communities.
Wonderful. Speaking of equitability, right? And if you look at the progress of our SDG, the targets, we could see that on SDG number 10, it seems like it's facing huge challenges, and the challenges of having or the initiative to reduce inequalities in our country remains to have major challenges. Would you mind to share with us what are exactly the major challenges in reducing the inequalities in our country, probably from the economic and social perspective? And how do we go about in overcoming those challenges? How do we move forward?
I think the indicators used in SDG 10 is Gini coefficient, right? So just to look at the poverty lines and differences, but inequality is not unique for Malaysia, right? It's a global phenomenon. I think we saw a study, I believe it was last year, where the top 1% of wealth, I can't remember the details, but basically 1% of wealth is controlled by very few. So so I think the levers, right? The levers for this is really about knowledge and empowerment and education, and how do societies and communities work to to enable empowerment and within their kind of circle and network of influence. Obviously, I've shared in my slide about the roles of government, the roles of businesses, and the role of civil society in trying to tackle these situations. I think, if you think about the roles of business as a owner of capital, there is a lot of influence and a lot of power in demanding for a more sustainable progress uh, through businesses and financiers and holders of capital, owners of capital. So it is not a one size fit all, but obviously from a Yayasan Hasanah perspective, like I said, we work with public, private, and civil society, and where we can, we build capacity, right? We build knowledge in the sector so that we're able to support not just a more bottom-up approach, but also where we can influence policy and a bit more of a top-down approach as well.
All right.
Not an easy problem to solve, inequalities.
Indeed, especially in our setting, Malaysia, with all sorts of differences that we have, not just from the economic inequalities that we are still facing, I think, but also the social aspect remains as a huge challenge to all of us. We have a question coming from an audience at home from Mr. Nasim Kamil. So he's asking, do you have any suggestions on creating awareness of this subject at household level?
Of what subject? SDGs?
The SDG, correct.
Yeah. As in YH, I think, it's a good idea, but I don't know whether the country has the capacity. But if you look at quite a lot of our projects that we're doing at the community level, it is, some of it is literally at household levels, right? A lot of this impact is happening at very grassroots community level, literally door to door, right?
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that YH has been a proponent of and have been trying to do a lot more is collaboration and working as a collective. So I think no one organization or no one entity can solve any of these SDG problems, obviously, but together, in terms of from a collective perspective, we can. So, for example, can peer foundations or corporate foundations work together for improving quality of education or improving quality of student outcomes, for example, because there's only those schools, everybody is working within those schools. So if we can pool together our resources towards a common mission, which almost everybody shares, then we can get those outcomes better. Environment is the same thing. No one organization can solve an environmental crisis at the state level, right? Or not even national, even at the state level. So it requires a collective effort and collective contributions from multiple parties to work together. So I think moving forward, that is certainly a model for us, and we are looking to work with multiple partners in solving our national issues together, whether it's forest cover, whether it's tiger conservation, whether it's the promotion of arts, whether community leaderships, scholarships, for example, can be amplified, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I agree. I think we also need to empower further the household on probably small things. We may not be talking about saving tigers or whatnot, but issues like cleanliness, for example, I think is a very important aspect of education that needs to start from home. because the moment everything is well grounded from home, then it will trickle into the society, right? And I think that has also been one of the fundamental principles that IIUM, especially our rector, has been trying to push to the society or to the community on the cleanliness, kebersihan,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
as much as it seems like cleanliness, who would talk about it? But it's actually a very important aspect, because from the cleanliness, it also affects the health or the well-being of the members in the house or the society, and then it will definitely go into the environmental issue, because if
That,
everyone is understand the importance of cleanliness, and perhaps we don't even have to talk about saving the environment, because everybody is already trying to save the nature as well as the environment. um there's another question to Puan Shahira. Perhaps this is going to be the last question before we wrap our session today. Um, with the pandemic that we are facing, and we still do not know when this pandemic is going to end, uh, do you think that Malaysia will actually achieve the SDG? And if, let's say, we are constantly facing this pandemic, what do you think should be the best step that we should take to move forward?
yeah, I think the SDGs were at risk even before the pandemic. So the pandemic has unfortunately derailed it further,
Mm,
and
yeah,
that's quite unfortunate. But I know that a lot of efforts are being put in to see where we
yeah,
can improve and where we can achieve some kind of a progress. As I think I believe that even when the pandemic kind of goes by and behind us, um, I don't think we're going to go back to where we were 100%.
yeah,
There will be quite a lot. There are a lot of things that has been disrupted, and all of the good things that came out of the pandemic will probably stay, right? So there were a
yeah,
lot of experimentation with education and online education. There were a lot of digital access and digitization got accelerated in multiple platforms. We know that online shopping hit the roof
yeah,
during the pandemic and the lockdown, and will people go back to brick and mortar type
mm,
businesses? So there are quite a lot of, and then work from home, quite a number of a large segment of society and professionals have been working from home. For
mm,
a lot of organizations, that was a huge savings in terms of overhead cost of paying rental and
yeah,
stuff like that. So there will be quite a number of things that will stay.
mm,
And I think the thing is whether it's SDG or not. It is really about the survival of the human race, right? Because
yeah,
if we don't do something, we will be faced with other challenges, not just pandemic. Uh,
correct.
Selangor tak ada air now, for example.
Yeah,
So this is like an introduction of, water rationing, food
mm,
rationing, quality of air that we breathe. All of this are layers of risks, and that will hit us if we don't do something about it. So I think it is a collective responsibility. It's not just some SDG document that we need to kind of, achieve all green in the traffic light dashboard or whatever. But it's really about
yeah,
our own sense of responsibility as human beings um, to the planet, and for our
yeah,
own survival and for the future generation. So it
mm,
is serious. It is a serious matter, and we all need to uh, shift. We all need to shift. We all need to challenge the status quo, and look at new ways of being, right? And we strongly believe in that, and I think we will continue to advocate for that. I want to take your point on teaching values at home. It is very true, right? So if you think the whole problem looks so overwhelming, what do I do, right? I can't save the world. You can save the world if you teach the right values starting from your own home, and teaching the right values to your children, and to the people that you are with every day, right? So you do have a sense of influence, and every single person does have the ability to make a difference, for a better world. So that would be my my comment to your question.
All right, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much, Puan Shahira, for all your responses. So before we end today's session, perhaps you might want to conclude, give your final words to our viewers out there.
Okay, so it's the same like what I've said earlier, guys. Each and every one of us can make a difference, and I think that if I can say something to everyone that's listening, go back and reflect about your ability to influence better outcomes, you know, for yourself, for your family, for your society, for the ummah, for the nation. Think about it, because each and every one of us can make a difference. And I strongly believe in that, and there is no point in feeling hopeless or helpless, but there's always opportunity to step up and do something that will make a difference. So that would be my concluding remarks to everyone that's listening in, and thank you so much for spending some time. I know it's I think it's one of the longest speeches that I have given. Usually it's a panel, and I thank the organizers for this opportunity to share our thoughts, and I hope it has been beneficial for everyone. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. On behalf of the organizer, we would like to thank you so much, Puan Shahira, for being with us today. It has been a very thoughtful discussion that we have. I wish Yayasan Hasanah best of luck, and keep doing the wonderful jobs that you guys are doing in moving the society. Inshallah, together we will be able to make some changes. So ladies and gentlemen, that would mark the end of the first session today on Community Builders Conference. I think while we are having this issue of pandemic, that should not be a factor that hinders us from staying positive. And I believe that from our discussion just now, there are two key takeaways that I can probably share with you. Number one is we need to collaborate. We need to cooperate together. Everyone needs to play their role in playing their part, because only then that we will be able to achieve the goals that we have set. And number two, we also need to keep on having this mindset of being able to contribute, that each and every one of us has the responsibility to contribute and become a game changer. Because moving forward and developing a nation is not a job of one person or one organization or one agency, but rather it's a collective efforts of everyone within this country, so that we can build a prosperous future for the future generations, for our kids, inshallah. And I think this Community Builders Conference has given us such a good platform for us to openly discuss about our roles and what we can do to together move forward and try to look on the good side instead of focusing on the hardships. Probably we need to start focusing on what we can do to make it better. So I think that would be all from me. I would like to seek apology should there be any shortage throughout this session, 1 hour session with Puan Shahira. Thank you again, Puan Shahira. I wish you good health. Stay safe
Thank you.
during the CMCO. I hope that this will end very soon so that we can, move faster. And back to Muaz and Nurul. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Mizan, Puan Shahira. It's a very long discussion, and I think it benefits to those who watch us through Facebook Live. So, what's our official Facebook page, Muaz?
Yeah, for all of you out there, don't remember to like and share the official Facebook page for Globs, GLOBS. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like mistake from myself earlier. It's not Globs 2020, but Globs, GLOBS alone.
Yeah.
So please have a search, go in there quickly, like our page, and share to all of your friends and colleagues. And it was such a pleasant to listen from both experts out there. I still remember Madam Mizan, my previous lecturer in IIUM, Islamic University in Malaysia, and now she is already the head of debate. Yeah, Nurul?
Director
For-
of IIUM.
IIUM. That's fantastic. IIUM is very well known for its debate team, who also harbored the previous Minister of Youth, Mr. Said Sadiq. So this is his teacher or guru. So what do we have tomorrow, Nurul?
Okay, for tomorrow, the theme of the day will be for the 12th November. The theme of the day is Sejahtera for SDG concept, localizing SDG in Malaysia context. So as you know, the university is champion in introducing the Sejahtera concept on top of the SDG. So they say it as that's the software of the hardware. So this is quite interesting. So let us hear tomorrow from those who are working on this concept. We have Associate Prof. Dr. Zainal, who is the Director of Sejahtera Center. And then the next session, we will have representative from the Malaysia CSO-SDG Alliance, Datuk Dr. Danison Jayasuriya, who will be sharing with us the challenges and hope from the APPGM on the localizing SDG in Malaysia. And then the last session will be on the topic of sustaining impact via collective participation beyond politics. So we will have representative from the APPGM. We will have Datuk Sri Hajar Rohani binti Abdul Karim, YB Maria Chin Abdullah, and YB Dr. Kelvin Yi Lee Yuan.
That's great, Nurul.
Yeah.
I believe, echoing what Madam Mizan had said just now, this is a collective role. It's everybody's duties. We have to work together. We have to be agile. We have to collaborate and ensure that we can achieve these objectives and put into practice what we have preached earlier. So, Nurul, I think that ends and wraps up this morning session.
Yes.
Again, I thank you all for joining from either each of the globe, either in 10 countries that I mentioned just now, either you're in Middle East, in Africa, in Europe, in Central Asia, down under, Australia, New Zealand, or in our very own host region, Southeast Asia. We hope that you can have a fruitful summit. Please don't forget to like and share our Facebook page, Globs, GLOBS. And that's all from us for today, this morning session. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you.